Just a quick disclaimer, this video does contain spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine, among other movies in the X-Men franchise. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It has been a hot minute since I made a video of this nature. Obviously the last one was the video I did on lightsabers and the, at the time, relatively new Kenobi series that was on Disney Plus, where I talked about my own personal theories as to why lightsabers seemed less lethal than in the original trilogy and the prequel series, which if you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link for it down below so you can go ahead and check it out. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I've debated for a long time, making a video about. If you don't know, I'm a huge X-Men fan. From the comics to the movies, all around, I just love the X-Men. So, when the Deadpool and Wolverine movie came out this summer, I went to see it. It was amazing, by the way, and I highly recommend it. As we know, the original Wolverine from the original X-Men movies died in the movie Logan, another very good movie. So the Wolverine we see in the new Deadpool movie is actually a variant from another Earth, who is said to be the worst variant of Wolverine, because he failed to save the other X-Men from death, which I'll get into why that's important later on in the video. So the death of our fan favorite Wolverine in Logan was caused, as many of us know, by adamantium poisoning, which was brought on from his adamantium-infused skeleton that he got, let's say, during the Weapon X program headed by William Stryker. Throughout the years, Wolverine's healing factor was strong enough that it was able to heal him from the adamantium poisoning as fast as the poison was spreading through his body. However, by the time we get to the movie Logan, the poison has become so profound within his body that it begins to spread faster than he can heal, ultimately leading to his death. This also causes him to age rapidly in his last few years, dying at the age of 197. Now, the variant of Wolverine that we see in Deadpool 3, during the car fight scene in the movie, where they do car jitsu, says that he's been alive for 200 years. But if the adamantium poisoning is supposed to take over Wolverine's body and kill him by the age of 197, how is our Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine already 200? Well, to understand this, we have to keep in mind that canonically these are two different iterations of Wolverine, and we're also going to have to look at what I feel is one of the forgotten gems of the X-Men movies, the Wolverine from 2013. One part of the Wolverine I specifically want to talk about is towards the end of the movie, during the final fight, where Wolverine gets his adamantium claws broken off of his body. And as we know from the comics, and what's even confirmed by the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, is that Wolverine cannot regrow his bones. Limbs and bones are the two things that are not regenerative for Wolverine, which is one of the ways in which his healing factor differentiates itself from Deadpool's. Yet, in the next installment in the X-Men series, which also serves as the second installment in the X-Men prequels, X-Men Days of Future Past, we see that Wolverine somehow has both of his adamantium claws once again. Well, at the end of the Wolverine, there's a post-credit scene where Wolverine is approached by Magneto and Professor X, and they warn him about a company called Trask Industries, which is developing Sentinels to kill mutants, setting us up perfectly for Days of Future Past and the mutant apocalypse. As the Watchers, we can deduce a very plausible theory from this, and that is that Magneto helped Wolverine, using his powers, regain his adamantium claws, and in doing so, could have unnaturally ended up amplifying the adamantium poisoning in Wolverine's body. Now, in Days of Future Past, Wolverine is projected back in time into his past body, which ends up creating a new timeline. But if we assume that a majority of the events of the Wolverine are unchanged, even in this new timeline, the theory still holds. But it's not the only theory that could serve as an explanation to Wolverine's death at 197 in Logan. Going back to Days of Future Past. In the new timeline that's created, William Stryker, the man who infuses Wolverine's skeleton with the adamantium, ends up finding him 6 years earlier than in the previous timeline, seeing as Days of Future Past takes place in 1973, and X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is the point on the original timeline where Wolverine receives his claws, doesn't take place until 1979. It is possible that in the new timeline, these 6 years made all the difference in the way the adamantium poisoning spread. Now, how does this tie back to the new Wolverine we see in Deadpool 3? Well, it's quite simple. We know in his world that all the X-Men are dead because of his own personal inability to save them, meaning that the events in Days of Future Past and the idea of the mutant apocalypse or mutant holocaust may not have been as big of a threat. As we know, one of the biggest pushes for the mutant apocalypse in the original X-Men series was the fact that Charles Xavier has secret super soldiers training in a hidden facility on his private property. So if Wolverine never goes back in time and meets Stryker early, he could just be on par with some version of the events in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then subsequently, the Wolverine. Also notable is that due to the fact that so many of the X-Men and other assorted mutants are dead, and we don't know exactly when they died because it's not explicitly mentioned, the events leading up to the Wolverine may not have come to pass simply because the characters that sparked those events weren't alive at the time. Meaning, Wolverine never would have lost his adamantium claws, and therefore never receives Magneto's help in getting them back, which means if that did amplify his adamantium poisoning, it never came to pass, and so this Wolverine will just continue to live. Now, what do I think this means for the future of Wolverine in the MCU? Will we continue to see stories with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine? Will we continue to see this specific Wolverine? I think that's really possible, especially considering these very easy to slip in canonical workarounds they have that they can use to avoid themselves of having another Wolverine die. But do I want to see Hugh Jackman in the role more alongside Ryan Reynolds? I mean, yeah, who doesn't? But I don't know that it's going to be a good idea for the MCU necessarily. I would personally love to see an X-Men recast and a new adaptation done specifically for the MCU, where the X-Men face an extreme new threat like Doctor Doom or something of that nature, and so therefore have to come out of hiding for an Avengers X-Men crossover. I feel as though that would be a very fitting introduction for the X-Men themselves into the MCU, or even to go as far as an origin movie as an adaptation into live action of one of my favorite classic comics of all time between DC and Marvel, which is Giant Size X-Men issue number 1, which follows the recruitment of several of the most prominent X-Men, including Storm, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler. So, to conclude, the MCU truly does have a lot to work with here, and I think it'll be really interesting to see what they come up with. Would you guys like to see more of Hugh Jackman in the role as Wolverine, or would you like him to pass the mantle on to someone new, because maybe it's time for a change? Would you like to see an X-Men origin story in the MCU? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and do subscribe. I also want to mention really quickly that the gaming team that I own, Samuroar Gaming, is currently recruiting for players and content creators. So if you are interested in joining, you can join. The Discord will be linked in the description, and I will be personally holding interviews periodically in the server for new applicants who want to join. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.